Well, it's great to be here, and it's great to be back with fellow aviators in the aerospace community. My name is Kaya, and I'm excited to be here. So I lead consumer sales and partnerships. I probably should change the title because what consumer sales actually includes, we thought it was a great idea in the space industry. So we're like, let's call it consumer sales because we're selling directly to consumers. And I thought, yeah, let's do that because it differentiates from selling to NASA, which was my prior job. But what it really entails is selling seats to space. So consumer sales is astronaut sales, corporate partnerships across the company, as well as our retail business. So thank you all for having me here. I always like to start with a quote. Why is space here? Why is space here at an aerospace type of conference? Well, I really think that space is for everybody. It's not just for the few. It's not just for rocket scientists or folks that are engineers. It's really for everybody. And I truly believe that it's everybody's business to know about space. So when I was a little girl, I thought, what am I going to be when I grow up? What are the options? I was a realistic kid. I thought, well, I could be a rock star or I could be an astronaut, right? Those are kind of two of the common things that little kids think about being when they grow up. But then I thought, are these realistic career paths? No. So statistically, you probably have a better chance of upgrading to first class on that 40 person waiting list than you do to become an astronaut in today's world. And that's really sad because 63 years later of human spaceflight, you have a very small chance of becoming the astronaut. So we're really trying to change that here at Blue Origin, which is what we're really excited about. It's about opening the accessibility to space. And I apologize, I'm talking so fast. We've crammed a 1-hour presentation into only 30 minutes, so I'm gonna be going really fast through this. Quick background on me. Born and raised loving airplanes. I have the bug. I started flying when I was 16 years old. My heart, my passion is definitely in the airplane aviation side. Why I'm in space is because I truly believe that we are at the pinnacle point. If I could go back in history and work in the golden age of aviation, I would. But I'm here in space because I truly believe that we're now in the golden age of space travel. So my career led me to Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport, where I spent a couple years in an airport management rotation program. Then I went on to lead Honeywell's flight business, so kind of around the block at Honeywell Aerospace, most recently their flight services business. And then I went to Panasonic Avionics Corporation, IFE products you all are familiar with, for a brief stint, led their global sales team. Now I'm here at Blue Origin, started off doing NASA sales. So I always joke, I didn't come from space. I never thought I would be in space. Aviation is where my love and my passion is. I never dreamt, because of those statistics, that I'd be in the space industry. So I'm lucky to be here. I'm privileged to be here. But I laugh because my first job in the space industry when I came to Blue Origin, what customer do they give me? They gave me NASA. So I led NASA sales for Blue Origin. It was my first job in the space industry. You want to talk about drinking from a fire hose and a tough customer. Definitely tougher than all you airlines out there coming from Panasonic. All right, so more about Blue Origin. We were founded in 2000. Jeff Bezos founded us. And really our vision and why we're here today is because we believe that in order to sustain our presence on this planet, we need to see millions of people living and working in space for the benefit of this planet. So you're going to see some newspaper clippings. I wasn't the only one that had a newspaper clipping from when I was a kid. Jeff has been thinking about this since he literally was a kid. His vision was to become a space entrepreneur. The Earth is finite and the world economy population keeps expanding. Space is the only place that we have to expand to. So you think about world population, just the sustainability of it. We're almost at 8 billion people now. We've boomed almost more than double growth in world population since we landed the first man on the moon. Well, why Earth? Why preserve planet Earth? Well, we're the best planet in the solar system. We're in the Goldilocks zone. There is no better planet. Some folks want to go to Mars. Some folks want to go outside the solar system. But Earth is our plan A. Plan B is not not such a great thing, right? So we need to preserve plan A. And that is really what we're all about. Earth is finite. We have finite amount of resources, from our minerals to our water sources, just to general space that we have here on this planet. But there's abundant resources out in space. So I know you've probably seen on the news, or you've been watching all of the great, remarkable discoveries that we're making. We just discovered that there's ice on the moon. And why is ice important? Well, ice can be turned into water. Water can then be turned into hydrogen, which is a great fuel. And you all know, as Aero is trying to figure out how to do more sustainable and futuristic fuels, hydrogen is actually a great fuel for spacecraft. So that's just one example. There's also really rare minerals out there on asteroids that we can go and mine. So this is what we're trying to get to. This is our vision of Blue Origin. Something that we're not going to see in our lifetime, unfortunately. We're paving the road to space for future generations to take advantage of. And so that's why it's important that we inspire the next generation to pursue careers in STEM, because we're laying the foundation out for them, so that one day we live in a future where this is kind of an O'Neill colony, where millions of people are living and working in space. They're in low Earth orbit, rotating around this planet and preserving planet Earth for light residential. So our threefold mission. Well, how are we going to get there? First thing is we've got to radically reduce the cost of access to space. And I say this because the most expensive thing is launching that rocket, building a rocket and launching it. And so in order to reduce the cost of access to space, the first and foremost, most important thing is reusable rockets. So reusability, which is actually a new thing kind of in this industry. For a long time, we used to launch rockets and splash them back in the ocean, including their engines. And so that's where Blue Origin is coming with reusable vehicles. Our vehicles are built to be 99% reusable and reused at least 25 times. Next one is to learn to access and activate the resources of space. So back to mining minerals on asteroids and mining, ice on the moon. We've got to build the infrastructure to make use of those resources that are out in space. So that's what we're doing through our lunar lander program that we have, our next generation space station. We have an actual, through Honeybee Robotics, it's actually a drill that's made to drill the moon for ice and minerals. So lots of weird things that we're up to, lots of cool things most people don't even know about. And then the third, and this is the one that's nearest and dearest, I know, to our founder's heart, is to awaken and inspire the next generation to pursue careers in STEM. Because without our kids and our kids' kids pursuing careers and taking the foundation that we've built for them, it's all for naught. So this is over at our orbital launch site. This is actually real. It's a great photo opportunity if you have some friends at Blue Origin who give tours. We don't overly give tours to the public, but this is our launch site, LC-36. Later this year, our orbital vehicle, when I say orbital, a really tall rocket that is taking us back to the moon, call it our Artemis rocket. New Glenn will be launching out of here right at this launch site later this year. So we're essentially building the road to space, and we've got a sign to prove it. So here are the key programs at Blue Origin. We've got our New Shepard suborbital vehicle. So if any of you saw, Jeff Bezos did fly on New Shepard, William Shatner, Michael Strahan, Wally Funk. For those of you who know Wally, our dear pilot Wally, this is really kind of the test bed for everything that we're doing on Blue Origin. And I say test bed because everything that we build, we iterate and we learn through reuse, through the products, through the engines on New Shepard that we then implement into all of our other programs like New Glenn. So New Glenn is our orbital vehicle. It's the one that I just mentioned. It's going back to the moon, this time to stay. This launches out of Cape Canaveral, Florida, and we'll be flying later this year, which we're so excited about. It's been a long time coming. It's going to be quite the event. We also have lunar permanence. So we're building a lunar lander. We're building a lot of things at Blue Origin. Sometimes I get, out of breath talking about these things that we build, but building a lunar lander as well, because we need to have the capability to not only deliver supplies to the moon, return stuff from the moon, but also bring our future Artemis astronauts back to the moon, and this time to stay. The next one we build are engines. We build all of our engines for our vehicles from from suborbital to orbital to you name it. We also sell our engines to ULA, United Launch Alliance. 2 of our engines power the Vulcan rocket. And then last is our in-space system. So we're building a next generation space station and a whole bunch of other things, but I won't let your eyes glaze over as I really want to get into why we're in the golden age of space travel. So if you think about the golden age of aviation back in the day, it really wasn't accessible to the masses. You look at the passenger travel, and in the 1930s, as it just started, there's roughly 6,000 air travel passengers that then increased quite rapidly. If you look at 1934, 450,000, 1938, 1.2 million. Well, why did it grow so fast? We keep talking about we flew the first astronaut to space 63 years ago. So why come we don't see 1.2 million folks flying to space? Well, the coast-to-coast round-trip ticket was $280. So $5,000, give or take. I don't know. Inflation numbers now might be a little bit different. The $5,200 is something that uncomfortable for me, but definitely could save my money and do that. Okay, so 63 years, only 600 humans have been to space. Well, if you look at even worse, and I like to do this because as a pilot in the industry and growing up in aviation, 5% of our airline pilots or our airline captains are women. And we're not doing that much better, but we're trying to improve it within the astronaut space. 12.5% of astronauts are women. Blue Origin's really proud to have flown 9% of all of those women astronauts. Well, why is it so expensive? Why aren't there more people flying to space? Why isn't everybody just calling me and saying, Kaya, get me on the next rocket? Well, for years and years and years, it cost $55 to $90 million per astronaut to send them to space. That is how much we, U.S. taxpayers, have been paying to send our astronauts to the International Space Station. It's crazy. It's expensive. It's not sustainable. It reduces the access to space to only those of government entities or very wealthy individuals. And that's not a sustainable industry. It's not where you are all today, where anyone can fly on an airplane. Well, why is it so expensive? So I mentioned earlier that we used to throw away rockets. We literally used to splash them down in the ocean. So imagine this is our New Shepard vehicle flying a liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen engine. All of the exhaust of this rocket is water vapor. So imagine all of that R&D that you spent, the materials, the carbon fiber in it, the complex LOX hydrogen engine that's on this. And every time you flew it, it ended up in the boneyard. That's traditionally what the industry had done for a long time. It would be like every time you fully loaded a 747 or an A380, after one flight, it lands and it's shipped to the boneyard. It wouldn't be sustainable. We wouldn't all be standing here today talking about the future growth of an industry. The industry would be dead. And so that's why the cost of access to space has just been so high for so long. And we've got to get to the reusability piece. So Blue Origin was actually the first company to vertically launch and land a rocket from space.
Oh, God.
So that is New Shepard re-landing on the pad after it went 62 miles into space. It's quite the feat. The landing pad in relation to the rocket is quite small. And that's what's so important is reusability and enabling a future where you build these vehicles and you put all of these resources into them and you bring them back. And you bring them back and then you fly them again. And that is the only way that this industry is ever going to turn the table and actually open up accessibility and reduce our costs. So New Shepard, I'm going to dig a little bit into it just because there's more applicability to you all in New Shepard than probably the rest of Blue Origin right now, just due to our maturity and we're actively selling tickets to space. But it's been the first of many. So we've done 23 total flights, 6 human flights. We've flown 31 people to space. Our historic flight, first flight, the first seat sold for $28 million. We've broken a lot of records. We've flown the oldest person to space, William Shatner, Captain Kirk. We've flown the oldest woman, Wally Funk, the youngest, the first siblings, on and on and on. I won't bore you too much. But we're breaking a lot of records only because the records haven't been set yet. This is such a new industry, and we hope one day that people won't even pay attention to the records because this will be the norm. It'll be as normal as getting on an airplane and flying to Dallas.
God.
Weightlessness. Oh, Jesus.
Carmen line.
No description can equal this. Weightlessness.
This is nuts.
Oh my God.
All right, you get the gist. No, we didn't pay him to say that. And when he landed, he was crying in tears. So if you haven't seen the Amazon Prime special Shatner in Space, I highly recommend it. And I'm sure a lot of you grew up watching Star Trek. So it was an honor to fly him. So first human flight. How on earth do you price a public ticket to space? It's something that is hard to quantify, right? And it's hard to target, and you're kind of guessing. You're throwing a dart at the board. And we did that. We all guessed what our first seat to space was going to go for, and it exceeded all of our guesses. I think we were all wrong. I don't think anybody, at least that I've run into at the company, had a guess this high. So you do an auction. Let the market dictate what the willingness to pay is. And so we did that on our first seat to space, and it sold for $28 million. We took 19 of that and donated it to 19 different charities. So each charity got $1 million. And then the rest of that money went right back into the New Shepard program so we could continue flying it and continue it into active service. This taught us a lot in terms of what the demand was, what the willingness to pay was, where we go from here in terms of pricing. And so Blue Origin still does not make pricing available to the public, but we learned a lot in sense of we've got a whole list of folks and we've got their willingness to pay because we have their bid numbers. And so we've been burning down this massive demand. And we've got nearly 7,600 people that actually signed up and registered for that auction. And they're from 159 different countries. So yeah, a lot of people want to go to space, which is not a surprise. It makes my job really easy. But fielding that demand and dynamically pricing it to make sure that you're going to hit your goal of making space accessible, but you're also not running, a bankrupt business. So I always love the quote that the fastest way to become a millionaire is to start as a billionaire and buy an airline. It's even worse with a rocket company. Just don't do it. We are a philanthropy, and I kind of laugh at this, but we are just philanthropy. This is not a huge money-making business. Yes, $28 million is a lot for a first seat, but so is flying that rocket. So is building that rocket. So is building a lunar lander and going to space. And so we took a lot of these lessons learned and we built this into a successful program where after we flew a couple times, we had another auction. Willingness to pay still was pretty high up there. So we will be flying a teacher soon to space, but you gain a lot of insight into the public willingness to pay when you do an auction. So right now, the way that you book a flight to space, so that how you get to my team, is you go to blueorigin.com, you click the link Fly to Space, and you fill this out. So the reason why I put this up here is because I think this sucks. And I need your help. So if you have good ideas after this conversation, I will be out there probably by the elevator bank. And if you have a really good idea, I'll give you a remove before flight keychain from Blue Origin. But like, how do you do this? You don't make pricing public. You want everyone's interest, but you also don't want to burden Kaya with thousands and thousands of applicants of folks that don't have the means. And so we walk this fine line of researching folks and picking the right people that could move forward and buy a ticket to space. But our dream and our goal, and we're going to get there, is one day it's going to be as simple as buying a ticket on an airline. We're just not there yet. But as the industry matures, we will definitely get there. So again, if you have good ideas on how to improve the website, definitely come find me. And then this is Wally Funk. At the end of the day, we want to fly more Wally Funks to space. So our motto, Gradatum Ferociter, is step by step ferociously. So as I mentioned, each thing that we do at Blue Origin is a step towards the future. It's a step towards another program. So for example, on our suborbital vehicle, New Shepard, we have a reusable LOX hydrogen engine called the BE3. That BE3 is a derivative of the BE3U engine that's powering the second stage of our New Glenn rocket. So every time New Shepard flies and it relands, we're gaining all of that data, all of that technical data, and that's just being implemented into the bigger rocket. Another example of some of the science technology that we do for NASA on New Shepard is their LiDAR sensors. So turns out that relanding a rocket in the West Texas desert, which is sandy in the middle of nowhere, hot most of the time, cold other times, it's like the moon. It's got dust just like the moon. The trajectory of the rocket coming down to land in a very precise area on that landing pad is just like coming down on the moon. And so NASA's been testing their LiDAR sensors for the Artemis missions on our New Shepard rocket. And as I mentioned, this is our orbital vehicle. So this is the Artemis rocket. This is taking us back to the moon to stay. It's a 2-stage rocket. 3.5 million pounds of thrust. So for my aviation folks, don't quote me. It's like 747s pointed vertically, something like that. You can do the math for me, but that's a lot of thrust. Just to put in perspective of the size, so the New Shepard vehicle that flies astronauts to space will fit in that very top fairing of New Glenn. So it is very large 7-meter fairing. And again, taking us back to the moon. This is our heavy lift. You can think of the 747. What a great tool it's been for cargo carriers like Atlas, taking the last 747 ever built. We're building kind of that 747 for the space industry. This is our cargo and human hauler. It's going to haul a lot of infrastructure up into space as we go back to the moon, as we build a lunar base, and as we continue on to build a habitat in space with our next generation space station. As I mentioned, we build engines as well, and that's a key part of our business. Keeping things vertically integrated is important to us. In particular, building a rocket engine, it's the most complex, it's the biggest pain in the ass thing on a rocket is the engine. And you can see kind of in these diagrams, a little more complex than a standard turbine aircraft engine. Coming from Honeywell, I used to walk the floor all the time in our turbine engine factory, and these things are just, they got a lot more wires. The wiring harnesses look like a maze on these things, but the complexity and the engineering that goes in behind them is quite remarkable. So we have our BE3, as I mentioned, that powers New Shepard. So suborbital vehicle has one BE3 on it. Then that derivative, the BE3U, powers the second stage of our New Glenn vehicle. Then the BE4, so this is that 3.5 million pounds of thrust when you put 7 of them together. So 7 of these are powering New Glenn, which is flying out of Cape Canaveral later this year. And then our BE7, which is the one that's powering our lunar lander. So here's our blue moon. This is what's taking us back to the moon. It's going to land on the moon, take samples. It's also going to return the first humans back to the moon as well. with our NASA contract that we have to go back to the moon. So we're really excited about this. It's an important and critical aspect. The reason why we like the moon and why folks are now starting to pay attention again, 63 years later, right? We're going back to the moon. It's like, well, what's going on for 63 years? Took us that long to understand, as our technology has matured, why the moon is so important. And it is important because getting off of this planet is really hard. Gravity sucks, right? Gravity is holding us down. And so with these launch vehicles, we expend so much energy. You think about a rocket. A rocket's just a giant fuel tank. And it might be a fuel tank on top of a fuel tank on top of a fuel tank. But a majority of that vehicle is just fuel. And you're trying to send all of this heavy fuel up into space just to break the boundaries of our gravity to get out of our atmosphere. So the moon is really important because it makes an ideal base. You have less gravity on the moon. You have resources that you can mine the moon for to refuel your vehicles. So back to mining the moon for ice. Take that ice, turn it into water. That water then becomes hydrogen fuel. So you can come and with reusable vehicles, you land on the moon, you refuel, then you're off into the deeper depths of the solar system because you have less gravity to get off of the moon with. So moon's really critical. The other thing that we have, Blue Origin has a really cool technology. I didn't include it in the slides, but we have the ability to actually take lunar regolith, so that's moon dust, and we can mine it, and we can then sinter it and print solar cells. So we're actually printing solar cells with moon dust. And that is completely reusable. It's a completely green process, and it will be how we build up and sustain power on the moon. And this is our next generation space station. So again, having a destination to go to. We wouldn't be a very good airline when right now we're not. We're going up and we're coming right back down. So imagine your passengers getting on a plane and you just do a big hold, turn around and come right back to where you took off from. And that's why it's critical to, as we mature this industry, we have to have destinations for folks to go to, not only for passengers and tourism, but critically for scientists and research and development and those folks that are going to help sustain, again, the millions of people living and working in space. We're located all across the country. So our headquarters is in Seattle, Washington, but I'm based out in Phoenix, Arizona. And we're going to be launching that really big orbital vehicle, as I mentioned, out of Cape Canaveral. So if you've ever been to Kennedy Space Center and you turn that corner and you're taking the kids to go see this really cool attraction, and then you see this like big building that looks like Disneyland, that's us. We're the ones across the street from Kennedy Space Center and the bigger building, but that is where we build our orbital vehicle, New Glenn. And then we launch and land New Shepard, the one that William Shatner flew on, out of our West Texas launch site. And just another picture of facilities. So it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of capital to build these rocket facilities, to hire the engineers, to launch pads as well. And so I always like to take a little jab at folks that are building spaceports or looking at spaceports, because I came from airports. That's where I started my career in airports. And I'm like, it costs billions of dollars. And unless you have the demand, rockets are different, right? Rockets are not taking people from one place to another. Rockets have a very special trajectory and orbital mechanics that these spaceports and these launch pads are located in really strategic locations that are based on the needs. And this one happens to be out in West Texas. It was an area where we could get enough land, not near water, to safely launch, test, re-land our vehicle, and also recover the crew capsule without hitting any sort of terrain, any sort of plants, anything like that. All right, a minute to go. So I did talk fast enough so we kind of combined everything. But as I mentioned, we have a 501c nonprofit, Club for the Future, dedicated towards STEM education. We provide curriculum. We provide a Postcards to Space program. And it's really about incentivizing and encouraging kids to pursue careers in STEM and space. And if you get a chance, definitely check us out, clubforfuture.org. You can have your kids, you can have your passengers' kids send postcards to space. I was at an event last week talking to an airline, and we would love to have some sort of feature maybe in the IFE where families can sit and do a digital postcard to space. So fly physical ones, but we also are doing digital ones. And that way the kids actually have something tangible that was flown on our rocket and stamped with a flown in space stamp. Anyways, that was a lot. I have 10 seconds left and it's going to start to buzz at me. So I will be outside. If you have any good ideas, again, help us fix our website. You all are experts in the pricing and demand area of ticketing. And Blue Origin is starting to turn that corner where we're opening accessibility to space. So thank you all for having me. It was a pleasure being back here with my Aviation AvGeek crowd.